Welcome to Fundamentals of Chemistry Lab. The very first lab we're going to do is density. We are going to be using a program called Beyond Labs. Beyond Labs, and the website is in the syllabus and in some announcements, has several different kind of areas within the lab, and we're going to use a couple of these different areas, the first one being physics. We are going to do a density lab. This is a topic that's covered in Chapter 1. But we don't cover buoyancy. So we're really just going to do the density part of this lab. So there's going to be a few things that I tell you to omit or not to do. So you can see here, this is from the Beyond Labs website. They tell you the purpose, the connections to what you already know, vocabulary, and background. So do read through that. You have a pre-lab question that you need to do. And then here is the procedure section. Now we're only going to do section 1 and really only part of section 1. So it says start the virtual physics. And so here's the virtual physics. I've already downloaded it onto my computer. I'm going to open it. Okay, and it does take a second for it to open up. Okay. And there are a couple different buttons at the top. But you're also going to see some different labs here at the bottom. Okay, so if you look at the instructions, it says start the virtual physics and select the density and buoyancy from the list of assignments. The lab will open in the density laboratory. So we come down here and we double click, or I have to double click, I have a Mac, and then the density is going to load. Okay, there's a few things to notice. We have some liquids here, and then we have spheres of different materials here. If you hover over it, they will come up with the different names. A few to notice, here is ice, there's aluminum, and then pine wood is there. So those are the 3 materials that you're going to use in the lab. We have graduated cylinders here, and then we have a balance here. Okay, so those are the few things to notice. When you look at this, it says you'll be measuring the density of solid objects and various liquids to predict whether solids will float or sink. You will also calculate the buoyant force. You're not going to calculate the buoyant force. That's not something we're interested in, but we are interested in density. So find the ice ball on the lab wall, pick up the ball and drag it to the spotlight on the balance. Record the mass in the first table below. Now, the first table below, right, is really the only table you're going to fill out in this. And you're really only interested in the mass of the sample column, the volume of the virtual fluid column, the volume of the virtual fluid and sample, the volume of the sample, and the density. You do not have to do the weight of the solid or the buoyant force in olive oil. We are not interested in those. We are just interested in density and how we calculate density. So we are going to come back up here. We're going to follow those directions. I am going to take the ice sphere or ball right there and put it onto the balance. Now I'm going to get a number here. This is the mass. It's weighed in grams. So you're going to make sure you remember your units when filling out your table. And so it's 18.748 grams. Now you're going to notice that this number is going to fluctuate. That is something that you would see in a real laboratory. That is to the thousandths place. So what we see is it'll fluctuate with air, with people walking by, those types of things. So pick one of those and go with it. It's one of our uncertain numbers, and that's okay. Now, everybody is going to get something different here. I've logged in to do this lab a half a dozen times, and every time I've gotten a radically different number. So if you've got 18.7 and one of your friends has 19, another friend has 14, and one has 15, notice you're going to get a whole range of numbers. It's unique to every person who does the lab. So just kind of be aware of that. I would not expect anybody to have the same numbers there. Okay. So we put that there, the ice there, we've recorded our mass. Let's go to our next step. Okay, it says use the up and down arrows on the control panel to toggle through the options of fluids to use in the lab. Select virtual fluid B. This is a unique virtual fluid that's only used in the virtual laboratory. Click the fill button to release the chosen amount of fluid into the 250 milliliter graduated cylinder on the laboratory bench. Click the top of the cylinder to see a zoomed in view of the level of the fluid. Record the volume in the virtual fluid in the table. Okay, so we're going to record it right here in this column. Okay, and so we're going to go and see if we can find our virtual fluid B. That's it. We're going to hit fill there, right? It's going to fill up, and we can click here to zoom in. Now, what we're going to notice is this is 230 and this is 250. That means this line has to be 240. That means that these are going to move up in 2 milliliter increments, right? So 232, 34, 36, 238, 240, okay? And just double check that yours moves in the same way. So if I look here, that means this would be 228, but the line is right below that, right? So when I look at that, I would say, okay, that's going to be 220. I think it's actually sitting right on the line, right? So 228 milliliters is what I'm going to record for that. Now, so I'm going to record that in the table, and then I'm going to come to the next step here, number 4. It says drag the ice ball to the top of the cylinder and drop it in the cylinder of virtual fluid. Click the green drop button to let the ball fall into the fluid. Look at the close-up view window to note the new fluid level in the cylinder with both the virtual fluid and the ball. Record the volume in the table and answer question 1. So when we look at this, right, we're going to take this and we're going to put it there. Okay, and then we're going to click drop. Okay, and it's going to go down, right? And then we also notice that our volume increased here. And so now we're going to calculate or record our new volume, right, with the ice ball and the virtual liquid. So here's 240, 242, 244, 246. So that's 246 milliliters, okay? And so when you look at question 1, okay, it says, how can you determine the volume of the ice ball from your measurements, okay? And the way that you can do that is by taking the volume of the virtual fluid and sample and subtracting the volume of just the virtual fluid. That's going to give you the volume of your sample. So for example, my volume of my virtual fluid and sample was 246 milliliters. The volume of my virtual fluid was 228 milliliters. So doing a quick calculation, that means the volume of my sample is 18 milliliters, right? So I can fill in the volume of my sample there. Now, right, we can record the volume of the ice sample in the table, click the blue handle at the bottom of the cylinder to empty the contents. Okay, so you'll click the blue handle here and it completely empties the contents. It says repeat steps 2 to 5 for 2 more samples, aluminum and pine wood. Record your measurements in the table. Okay, so use the formula for density to calculate the density of each of the solid samples. Okay, so you're going to use the formula for density to calculate the density of each solid sample. The formula for density is just mass over volume. So you're going to take the mass that you had. So for example, I had 18.748 grams, and I'm going to divide by the volume, which is 18 milliliters, right? And so that will give me my density. Now what I want you to do is I want you to do aluminum. So I want you to do the ice here, the aluminum, the pine wood, and then here I want you to add one other sample of your choosing, right? So it can be chocolate, it can be copper, it can be gold, it can be rubber. So you can be one of the virtual solids, right? So I want you to choose one other. So you should end up with 4. Okay, there should be ice, aluminum, pine wood, and one extra here. You need to have filled out the pre-lab question, right? And you'll answer question 1. And that's all you're going to do on this lab. We are not going to do the procedure. So again, ice, aluminum, pine wood, one of the other samples, it's your choice, and then you answer question 1. Now, when you're ready to exit the lab, you can't click out for whatever reason. You have to go to exit, and so you can just click exit there, and then you exit here as well. Okay, and so that is your first lab.